Wonderboy 3: The Dragon's Trap is a platforming and action-adventure video game developed by Westone as part of Sega's Wonderboy franchise. It was published by Sega and released for the Master System in 1989 and later for the Sega Game Gear as Wonderboy: The Dragon's Trap. "1989 was very much Nintendo's year, with the console maker realising its hard work and potential by wresting control of its home Japanese market, dominating the critical North American market, and recording record turnover figures. During 1988, a shortage of ROM chips, along with Nintendo of America's preparation of a version of Super Mario Bros. 2 for Western gamers, prevented Nintendo from performing various North American game releases according to their original schedules. The delayed products include Super Mario Bros. 3, and according to Nintendo Power, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. The delay, however, presented Nintendo with an opportunity to promote themselves in a feature film. In 1989, Tom Pollock of Universal Studios approached Nintendo of America's marketing department about a video game movie. Inspired by video game competitions, Pollock envisioned a video game version of Tommy for younger audiences. Nintendo licensed its products for inclusion in the film, and in 1989, The Wizard was released, starring Fred Savage, Christian Slater, and, in his first ever major motion picture, a young Tobey Maguire. The film went on to gross $14.3 million at the box office, thus sealing the title of the Nintendo Entertainment System being the biggest console in the world. The Nintendo Entertainment System had also been the best-selling toy of 1988, regardless of the perceived hold-ups in Super Mario Bros. 3 and Zelda 2. Luck was smiling on Nintendo, and they were hoping their new secret project, codenamed Dot Matrix Game, would carry on this trend into 1989. Project Dot Matrix Game arrived as a Nintendo Game Boy, and with it, the best-selling video game of all time, Tetris. Another 97 games were also released on the NES for 1989, including Ninja Gaiden, Faxanadu, Bomberman, and the highly anticipated Mega Man 2. North America would end up having to wait until 1990 for Super Mario Bros. 3, though Zelda 2 beat its anticipated 89 date and arrived in North America in late 1988. Sega, by contrast, were at a crossroads. Failure in the North American market and having to accept the ignominy of now being the third largest console provider in its home market of Japan, NEC's PC Engine being second, led them to accept the Master System's fate somewhat and concentrate on trying to dominate the new 16-bit arena with its Mega Drive console, due to be released in North America in summer 1989 and had to be a success by comparison to its predecessor. Be that as it may though, 1989 brought 32 new titles to the Sega Master System, one of which would go on to become a cult classic and give hope for the future of Sega, Wonderboy 3: The Dragon's Trap. The Wonderboy franchise had been around since 1986 and started life as a side-scrolling arcade. The titular Wonderboy, called Tom Tom, is a tribal caveman-like boy whose girlfriend Tina has been captured by the Dark King. The player must guide the Wonderboy through 7 areas, each consisting of 4 rounds. Wonderboy was a rather uninspiring arcade platform, consisting of power-ups and end-of-area bosses. Being 1986, however, and Super Mario Bros. Being the biggest selling game of the year, Westone were keen to capitalise on this fad, and was successful enough for the game to be ported on several different consoles and machines, including Commodore, Amstrad and Sinclair. Wonderboy and Monsterland followed and arrived on the Master System in 1988. The plot follows the events in its predecessor, Wonderboy. The game's main protagonist is a young boy named Bok Lee Temjin, in which his friends call him Tom Tom, a link back to the first Wonderboy game in 1986. Following the evil king's defeat, peace reigned over Wonderland for 11 years. Then, one day, a fire-breathing dragon called the Mecha Dragon appeared and terrorised the land. The people, helpless and not skilled in fighting, were defeated by him and his minions. They quickly took over the land, and Wonderboy became known as Monsterland. The people sent out Wonderboy, now a teenager, as Wonderland's only chance to defeat the monsters and demons who inhabited the land and to defeat the Mecha Dragon. This saw a critical turning point in Westone's strategy and subsequent performance in the marketplace. With Monsterland, Westone tried to create a game that fused together arcade and RPG elements. The jungle backdrop was overhauled and replaced with a medieval one with castles and caves. As with RPGs, they intended for the player to start with no items or strength, and for players to buy items, spells, health and better equipment. Later in the game's development, Shinichi Sakamoto came on board to compose its soundtrack. In an overview of the series by IGN, they said that the music was a sigh of relief for those still haunted by the repetitive loops of the arcade original, adding that it contributed to the RPG style and that would establish the standard for all future Wonderboy games in the series. Wonderboy 3 The Dragon's Trap takes place immediately after the events of Wonderboy in Monsterland. Wonderboy travels into the Mecha Dragon's lair in order to slay him. However, upon doing so, he is inflicted by a curse that transforms him into Lizard Man. In the game, the player controls Wonderboy as he tries to undo this curse by journeying across the land, defeating other dragons, and finally defeating the Vampire Dragon to obtain the Salamander Cross, the only object that can remove his curse. After completing the first level in the game, a simplified version of the final level from the preceding game Wonderboy in Monsterland, the player begins as Lizardman from Alcedo, a town in Monsterland, and the gameplay becomes non-linear. From there, the player explores and finds items and clues needed for Wonderboy to access different parts of Monsterland. Gold and additional secondary items can be found by defeating enemies and opening treasure chests. With gold, players can buy additional items and better equipment in shops and restore their life meter in hospitals. Items with question marks displayed cannot be bought unless the player has charm, which can be increased by collecting charm stones or by equipping certain items. In the game, the player uses the directional pad to move Wonderboy left or right, crouch down, only possible as human or lizardman, or to enter doors. The buttons on the controller are used to attack enemies and to jump. Wonderboy can attack with his main weapon or with secondary weapons by holding down the directional pad and pressing the attack button. Pressing the pause button brings up the status screen and pauses the game if Wonderboy is fighting a dragon. Wonderboy has a life meter shown on the top of the gameplay area as a series of hearts. When all hearts turn black, Wonderboy dies and the game ends, but if he has a life potion remaining, he will revive with some of the hearts refilled. After the game ends, the player is taken to a continue screen. There, the player has an opportunity to win a free life potion before restarting the game at the town. Players can visit the town's church to receive a password in order to continue the game at a later time. The password saves the player's current form, equipment and amount of gold, but it does not save any secondary weapons or life potions. Throughout the game, players go through differently themed levels: underwater, desert, jungle, cave and sky. At the end of each level is a different dragon. After defeating a dragon, Wonderboy changes form and his abilities change. Wonderboy begins the game as human, equipped with all 8 hearts and the strongest equipment. He turns into Lizardman after defeating and being cursed by the mecha dragon in the first level. At that point, he loses all equipment and hearts except one. Lizardman attacks enemies by breathing fire at them, and he can duck, but must use his fire to defend against enemy projectiles, as he does not hold a shield in front of him. Mouseman can walk on ceilings designated by checkered mouse blocks. Piranha Man can swim freely underwater and can access underwater places which other forms cannot. Lion Man attacks enemies with his sword by slashing from directly above to directly below him, allowing him to attack targets other forms cannot. And Hawkman can fly freely in the air, but takes damage if he enters water. Wonderboy 3 The Dragon's Trap received wide acclaim from critics upon release. It received coverage in a September 1989 issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly, where they provided a brief overview of the game and a summary of the events in Wonderboy and Monsterland leading up to the game's plot. GamePro gave a brief overview of the game in its September-October 1989 issue, adding that it's truly an adventure worthy of Wonderboy. It received extensive coverage in both the January and February 1990 issues of Video Games and Computer Entertainment, featuring an overview and a walkthrough of the game. The magazine praised the game for its challenge and overall look, which it says will have you manipulating your control pad for days on end. Various UK-based video gaming magazines gave Wonderboy 3 The Dragon's Trap significant coverage. UK magazines Computer and Video Games and its spin-off Mean Machines, in the latter's premiere issue, gave the game positive reviews. Computer and Video Games praised the animation in particular and called it the best game of its type on that platform, using phrases such as familiar air of polish and ingenuity and piles of addiction guaranteed. Mean Machine's Matt Reagan said it ranks as one of the greatest Sega Master System games ever. He compared the gameplay to the Mario series of video games and praised the game's depth, saying that there's always something new to discover, be it a key to a previously locked door or even a secret room. Julian Rignall praised the game's graphics and the huge world players can explore, which he says contributes to the game's addictiveness. He said that the combination of adventuring, shooting and platform action results in one of the best games of its type available on any console. Collectively, they praised the game's overall presentation and graphics, saying that the sprites complement the background, while they additionally praised the playability for being accessible from the word go and longevity. All Games Revue praised the non-linear gameplay and the ability to change into different forms, saying that it keeps things interesting and fun, and keeps the game from getting repetitive. It lauded its visuals and sound effects, saying that the graphics are very colourful and have a cartoon look to them. The editing staff from the magazine Retro Gamer listed Wonderboy 3 The Dragon's Trap as one of the perfect 10 games for the Master System, calling it the best in a long and highly convoluted myriad of multi-titled games, and a great adventure that every Master System fan needs to own. The review praised the game's brisk pace and gameplay, despite the length of the game. The Wonderboy franchise had achieved its ambitions of being a uniquely different game to the current market offer. With the technological backgrounds combined with the medieval ones, the Wonderboy franchise seemed to be well placed to pick its own destiny by either developing futuristic high-tech sequels similar to that of Phantasy Star, or working in depth with its now firmly established medieval theme as a solid competitor to the Zelda franchise. Wonderboy 3 Dragon's Trap would ensure the franchise would always be mentioned alongside developing greats such as Zelda, Castlevania, Metroid and Mega Man in order to help Sega's fortunes. Moreover, the launch of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, had not been well received by the Western audience and received scores of 6s and 7s. Westone's Wonderboy had helped Sega give Nintendo somewhat of a black eye, and with the relative age of both franchises, the battle for the best RPG at the time now hung in the balance. A slick, solid sequel would have to follow for Sega's flagship 16-bit machine. This could see critical gains, and even a significant shift in market share. With the right strategy, Sega could start the new decade as the go-to console for RPGs, Phantasy Star having already helped Sega in this area with its still popular 1987 release. (1992) would be the showdown year. The 16-bit era was well underway, and market share between Nintendo and Sega was neck and neck. The world was at video games war, and every single title released was scrutinised, reviewed, and subsequently affected the share prices of their respective console manufacturers. In the RPG world, Sega had struck significant blows on their new machine, with Phantasy Stars 2 and 3 being released in 1990 and 1991 respectively to great reception. Nintendo, by comparison, were late to this arena, and in 1990 had only just released their 16-bit entrant, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, in their home Japanese market. The Super Nintendo's lack of exposure was hindering its progress, and a well-received launch of the new Zelda title was critical. Nintendo were loading up for a big launch. Westone's new Wonderboy title needed to be everything the world hoped it would be, and more. In March 1992, Westone, in an about turn from their promise of making deeper, stronger RPG games infused with arcade, left Sega Mega Drive owners with something of a similar look and feel of Wonderboy in Monsterland, in the form of Wonderboy in Monster World. Even the name was uncannily similar, and a whole new storyline and main character. This seemed to be the worst combination of regression and change, and was greeted with confusion and a lack of enthusiasm from a North American market. Nintendo, by comparison, had learned their lessons from the comparatively poorly received Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, and in April 1992 launched The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past in North America to great reception. The game had reverted to a top-down format, and the premise, like the original Zelda title on the NES, was about Link, the game's main protagonist, rescuing Princess Zelda from the clutches of the original antagonist, Ganon. To keep the story relevant though, and to give the public the characters that made the first game so successful, the format of a prequel was conceived. Coupled with better gameplay, sound, in-game map, graphics and colour, the game was an instant success. A Link to the Past went on to become one of the best-selling games of all time, not just for the Super Nintendo, but for Nintendo as a whole, and concreted the standards we expect in RPG games until better technology evolved possibilities. Nintendo won significant ground in a critical market. Wonderboy and Westone fell considerably short and left Sega reeling after expectations were so high. Wonderboy 3 The Dragon's Trap deservedly won Electronic Gaming Monthly's Best Game of the Year award for the Master System in 1989 and narrowly fell short of winning the Golden Joystick award. But its debut on the 16-bit platforms would just not be good enough in an ever-demanding and ever-increasing world of video gaming. Phantasy Star, Zelda and Final Fantasy, amongst others, would evolve and dictate the genre, appearing on more advanced and diverse platforms for years to come.